Welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to go ahead and begin expanding our application. So when you go onto the accounts and when you click on one of the accounts, you're going to get something like this. So you will have transactions. Basically, you will have the value of a transaction if the money came in or if the money went out. The transactions will have dates, and they will have some sort of descriptions. So I've placed in some random descriptions here. So something else, bills paid. And in addition to that, transactions will also have some sort of tags that you wish to put into them. So the tag for this transaction is, for example, bills, electricity, or something like that. And then it gives you the total balance of the account here as well. Okay, so let's have a look at our files. I'm just going to go ahead and close these. Okay, the first one that we're going to take a look is transaction model.ts. So we will need to create a transaction folder where we will store everything that is related to the transactions, and within it we will have the transaction model.ts, as you can see, and transaction.service.ts. So transaction model is fairly straightforward. Basically, we just create a class transaction and export it. All the fields down below in this class will be public, as that is a model, and the whole point of them being here is so that they could actually be used elsewhere. So they need to be accessible. Now you have the ID. You have some sort of a variable ID of type string. This will be the ID of the transaction itself. Then you have the value. So this represents the value of a transaction. It means that basically money, the minus will mean that the money went away, and the plus that the money came in. So as you can see, if there is no minus, if it's green like this, that's well, not the plus. If it's green, or if it's like this, the money came in. But if there is a minus and if it's red, the money went away, gone. Anyway, general transaction description will be down below. So you have a description variable, which is of type string. That's just some general description for the transaction that is right here. And of course, we need the dates to be recorded for every transaction. So you have the dates here listed as well. And moving onwards, you have tags, which are to the right. So I've just placed in some random tags, but you can place in whatever you want there as well. This is so that you can better trace the transactions. And down below, you have the account ID. So we also need to bind the transaction to a particular account, and we will do that by using the account ID. Of course, you have to create the transaction folder first, as I said before, and then these two files within it. And hopefully by now you know how to create this. The transaction folder is in the account folder. So now let me just go ahead and check this. It's in the app folder. Yep, my bad. Sorry, I just get confused with a lot of things that are currently opened up. So the transaction folder is in the app folder, and within it you have these two files which you need to create, which hopefully by this point of time you know how to do. Anyway, now the transaction service.ts, you have well, not a bigger file here, but hey, it's just a lot of new code that needs to be written. Let me just do this. So many better ways of doing this, but I am going to be very lazy. And maybe I won't. Hold on, let me just format this a little bit so that it's a little bit more clear as to what is it exactly that is being done here. Actually, I don't need these indents. I just need to do this. And now I need the indents, which was kind of stupid of me, but oh well. I'm just gonna do this as well and separate all the fields to the new lines. And you see it looks a little bit better. You can agree or disagree with me. Either way. Oops, didn't see this one. And okay, so here and here and another one. Kind of makes me wonder why I didn't do this before. I don't know, I guess when you're writing the code that you're writing it in a very different way from when you're writing it for other people to actually see. So last modification. That should be it aside from this one. There we go. So let's go over this file now. So you have the injectable decorator up here, which we have used before. So this decorator is needed in order to create services, in order to be able to inject them into components. And this is the transaction model that we just basically made. So the transaction.model.ts. Account, this is already familiar from before, except we're using the double dot here, which I've explained before. It means that we are reverting one directory back. So we're just creating a shortened path here because we have to exit the transaction folder and then go looking for the account and account.model. Anyway, moving on downwards, we are making this class injectable, basically. We're just adding a decorator to a class to declare it injectable, just as we basically did before in the previous tutorials. So just export class, and the class name is transaction service. Now down below, there is a private variable. So since we at the moment do not really have a database, this array will represent the transactions that we have, and the service will pull the data from it. Later we'll add a database. But for the time being, I'm just going to use this array as a sort of a simulation of a database, so to say. So this is like transactions, and then you have an array transaction. You have a variable transactions, private one of type array, and basically in it we will store the information in regard to the transaction. So ID here is 1, so this is the ID of the transaction itself. The value is 50. As you can see, the value is 50, it's 1. And you have the description, which is something, and then you have the date, and now this is something new here. So we're creating a new object here to basically initialize the date and time, which will be set by default to the current date. And that's why it's 19th. Oh my god, it's 19th today. I have a terrible orientation time-wise. Like, if you agree to meet with me at 5, you will be lucky if I arrive by 7 or something like that. I either arrive 2 hours late or 2 hours early, which is a cause for a lot of funny scenes and a lot of rage. Anyway, yeah. Down below, just some tags. You can add tags here. I just added some random tag something. It doesn't really matter. If you want to add multiple tags, you just separate them by a comma as demonstrated here. And this is account ID. So we will tie this to the account with the ID 1, which is basically our first account that we created. And the other two are exactly the same, pretty much, except this one is actually a minus, and the other two are actually like some money that came in, and this is the money that went away. Next up, we have this function, a public method, basically. So this is used to get all the transactions from some account, basically. as a parameter, it takes actually the account ID as a parameter. So we are sending the ID of the account, and it will return a promise in a form of an array of transactions. And down below, we're using the previously utilized syntax for a promise. So you have resolve and reject as parameters of an arrow syntax function, although reject will not be used at all, and only the resolve will be used. So we'll just go ahead and resolve this straight away because there is no case when it will not be resolved. Transaction, basically here, this is transactions, this is our array. Let me just go ahead and show it to you. You see, transactions, this is our array. A filter is the method of the array, a built-in method, which will return a new array in which we will have elements from the array of elements from which the arrow function return true, so to say. I know I messed that up when as soon as it came out of my mouth, I realized that there was something messed up. Anyway, you have a filter here. And so the filter says, okay, I will create a new array, and in that array, I will store all the elements from the previous array for which this function actually returns true. And what happens here is that this is an arrow function again, and you have tran, which is basically a parameter that will also be the element that we're looking into. And we are then checking that with this. So then we're checking, is the account ID of this transaction equal to the past account ID? If the result of this comparison will be returned. So if true, that will be stored in the new array. If not, it won't, basically. And down below, like with the account service before, we will export this variable. So we will export this variable, so transaction service providers, that contains all the needed providers for this service. Although this is strictly not necessary at this point in time, trust me, just included, this does prevent a lot of troubleshooting later on if problems do occur. Anyway, bid you farewell and hope to see you in the follow-up tutorial.